Welcome back, everybody. Our next guests are an amazing duo who are traveling the world while sharing their story of survival. Please welcome the author of Craig and Fred, a Marine, a Stray Dog, and How They Rescued Each Other, Craig Grossi, Fred the Dog, and Larissa. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. Hi, Freddie.
Thank you.
Look how he's excited because we're clapping. Larissa,
Where do you want to go?
look.
Oh, that's what he wants,
Yeah.
Daddy.
He's full of beans today.
Full of beans.
Oh, hello.
From a rescue perspective, Larissa, why was this story so touching to you?
Oh my goodness. You know, I love a good rescue story, and this is unlike any other. You know, it's just, we talk about how dogs and people have so many parallels, and this really goes to show parallels with no boundaries, because Craig was overseas working as a Marine. He's a Marine, and he was in Afghanistan looking for himself, looking for his purpose, fighting and saving people. And then we have a stray dog that was in Afghanistan doing the same thing, looking for a purpose. And the two of them found each other, and the rest is history. And it's an amazing story of love and survival and friendship.
Yeah.
It really is.
Craig, 8 years ago, you were in the Marines, as Larissa said, and you're risking your life in Afghanistan, and your job was as an intelligence collector.
That's right, yeah.
That's a dangerous foreign position, yes.
Yeah.
And then you laid eyes on, of course, now he's beautiful, but at the time, what you said was a goofy stray dog in Afghanistan.
Right,
You're like,
exactly.
So take us back to that day when you met Fred.
Well, yeah. So we were in a rough spot. Yeah, and there was no bases. There was nowhere for us to really go once we inserted. I was attached to a team of recon Marines.
Right.
Recon Marines are some of the toughest and smartest dudes around, and I was just their intel guy. It was my job to talk to people and figure out what was going on, because we hadn't had really any troop presence there in a long time, and so we occupied this little compound, and we spent. Where are you going, man?
It's a house
He's exploring our compound.
He loves checking out. We're explorers, man. He's all about new smells and people. So
He can smell anything he wants.
whatever
Yes,
you need, man.
He's the hero dog.
Well, so no, we spent like over a week just under siege, you know, and it's really a credit to those recon guys that we didn't lose anybody, and we held this little house just as long as we could for a little over a week until the Taliban kind of left us alone. We realized we weren't going anywhere, and in between gunfights and just defending ourselves and stuff, I'd spotted him, and he was so different from all the dogs that I saw. Most of them were really big, and they roamed around in packs at night. And, and you didn't want to get anywhere near them, you know.
Right.
We technically weren't supposed to. So, you know, and after things calmed down, I think the little kid in me that kind of always wanted a dog, you know, I couldn't hold back anymore, because Fred's actually my first dog. So I got the classic. I got the classic line from my mom and dad when I was a kid. You know, we're gonna end up walking it. We're gonna have to take care of him.
That's not
you know,
the classic boy and his dog.
No, right, exactly. But I walked all the neighborhood dogs for free. That was my. I was trying to demonstrate that I could handle the responsibility. I think it backfired though, because they were just like, "Oh, he's walking the neighbor's dog."
It all changed with a piece of beef jerky.
Yeah. So how did you end up luring Fred over to you?
So
He must have been frightened.
I walked over to him, and as I got close to him, I could see he was covered in bugs and hot and hungry, and I was like, man, this is a bad idea. Like, this guy's gonna growl at you or snap at you. And I got a little bit closer, and I just heard this little thump coming from him. And I looked up, and he's wagging his tail.
Oh, that was his tail on the ground?
Yeah, and that was the last thing I thought he was gonna do, because he had nothing to wag his tail about.
Wow.
You know, and so I came a little closer, and I gave him this piece of beef jerky, and he took it so gently, despite being obviously starving, you know, and I swear if he had a napkin, he would have wiped his mouth. Like, he was so polite. And I was like, man, who is this guy?
The most well-mannered dog in Afghanistan.
Yeah, you know, and so he followed me back to my stuff, and all the guys on the team, we instantly fell in love with him, and we started coming up with little ideas, little plans on how to get him out of there. But it was, you know, it was a great idea at the time, but really risky. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, befriending dogs in Afghanistan is not highly regarded.
No.
How did you work that out? Because I know that they don't want you to even have any sort of communication with the animals.
Right. Yeah. It's a tough rule in situations like ours, but it's not a bad one in some regards too, because you don't want people just running up to stray dogs over there and they get bit and then they get sick and then they're off the front lines and they're off the mission. And but in Fred's case, you know, we really wanted to give him a shot. So, but it was a huge risk, and if I got caught, he'd be put down.
And you'd be in trouble.
I could get in some trouble. You know, I've been in trouble before.
He was worth it.
But Craig, then they moved your unit to a different base.
That's right.
And instead of bringing Fred, you gave him a choice.
I love this.
I'm big on
like signs and like kind of seeing what happens, you know.
Sure.
So I kind of left it up to him. I was like, we're going out to this other compound a little further away from the fight because we were going to get picked up and go back to this base for a break for a couple weeks. And I was like, if he follows us out there, you know, that'll be a sign. And sure enough, yeah, that was
you and your boys
yeah,
right there.
that's right.
Yeah, that's a tough day job right there, man.
Yeah, and night job too. Yeah, we did a lot of fun stuff at night. But sure enough, we moved out that night. Everybody packed up and left where we had been the whole time.
How'd you feel leaving Fred
It was
behind?
tough. I took a couple of pictures. There's actually a picture of me holding Fred that's in the book, and it's one of my favorite pictures of us. But I thought that might have been the last one that we would ever
So what
take together.
happened?
And
There's a picture.
Yeah, that's at a beach in Oregon. Yeah, on our travels. And
Casual there.
we woke up that morning after we moved to the new compound, the new little base we made, and I was like, I kind of made peace with the fact that maybe I wasn't going to see him again. And one of the guys was looking through his binoculars off in the desert, and it's just this little ball of dust kind of coming towards us. And I looked through, and he has this really unmistakable trot. You know, it's just this little tail bobbing, and his head kind of going, you know, just this like head held real high. And I was like, that's Fred. Like,
In the movies,
Can
it's
you
slow
imagine?
motion, right?
This is like 6 miles away.
Yeah, it
in
was
the
a
dead
long
of
walk.
night.
And
They're
they
leaving
found
the
you.
base, and the
Yeah.
next morning, the dog's there.
Because he smelled them.
It's
Like,
like-
he could
it's-
smell you. He was looking
I think
for
I
you.
joked at the time. I was like, I think he just needed to pack. Like,
I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many amazing stories in the book
thank you.
of Fred and how you saved his life and you actually got him back to the U.S. But just like the title of the book and the cover says, he also saved your life. He really helped you transition back into being a civilian.
That's right.
How
Yeah.
so?
He's helped me in ways I'm still figuring out. But one of the biggest ones is just seeing the power of storytelling in our story, for me specifically, just because when we were living in Washington, D.C., and I just gotten out of the military and was working for the government, you know, everything I think on the outside looked pretty good. I had an apartment and a truck, and like my friends were all there, but I wasn't happy, and I was fighting some demons, I think, inside. And when I would take Fred for a walk, people would stop me and be like, "Hey, what kind of dog is that?" You know, because he's so different looking, and handsome, and
Your answer is perfect.
yeah,
Perfect
right.
Dog.
And little by little, I started to kind of share the story with people. And I think these poor people were expecting like a 30-second answer. And they're getting a 30-minute story about, you know, where I found him and how I got him home. But
How healing that must have been for you.
And I left my job and went back to school and started writing for school. And I realized I loved to write, you know. And I was like, man, I think, you know, this is my duty now. Like, Fred and I are just the mouthpieces and kind of the spokespersons for this story, because it's so much bigger than us, and we just love sharing it. And it really is something that's a lot bigger than us, and we just love doing it.
I love that you're telling the story, and Fred obviously has heard it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
He's bored
yeah.
to sleep.
Spoiler alert: he makes it home. Yeah.
Larissa, you say everyone should live like Fred, and by the way,
Yeah.
I live like Fred a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
What do
I'd
you
like
mean
to
by
live,
that?
live like Fred right
Sleep on the
now.
couch.
You know, when Craig and I were talking, there are just so many miracles to this story. I highly recommend everybody reading the full thing, because it's heart-wrenching in the best way possible. But you talked about the fact that you live by a philosophy that's called stubborn positivity.
That's right.
And this is Fred's philosophy,
Yep.
which is when you have no reason to wag your tail,
Right.
because the chips are down, everything's against you, nobody believes this is the time you're going to wag your tail. Wag your darn tail.
So
That's when it's the
That's
most
right.
important. And
It
I
is.
know those are partly your words, so
No,
I credit
no,
you.
no, that's
but
great. That's
It's
perfect.
It's amazing, and thank you for putting that in my head and everybody's
Yeah.
head.
And Larissa,
That's what
thank
you
you
can
for-
take with you. Just wag your tail.
Yeah, exactly.
Larissa, thank you for bringing us the story. And Craig, thank you so much for your
Oh, you
service.
guys-
And thank you so much, Fred. Thank you, Fred, for being such an inspiration. She's adorable. Craig and Fred is available now, and 10 lucky viewers will receive a copy of this incredible book. All you have to do is go to our Facebook page to enter. And for more on this unforgettable story, head on over to fredtheafghan.com. Oh, I love your story. Look at him.
Right now, you might have to hold me.
Paigey, you're up next.
That's right, I'm going to show you how to show your patriotism by doing a DIY baseball flag out of bats and balls. It's really easy and gorgeous.